little circle here. Anita, closer, closer, closer. Good. You got it just right there. Thanks for coming. This is a snowy night. This exhibition involves a lot of love. I'll explain that as I go along. And obviously you love this institution and art, and that's why you're here. This is the smallest museum that I have. I've curated about 50 exhibitions, and this is the smallest museum that I've worked with, but it is in truth the finest staff that I've ever been involved with, and it's been a great experience. And Alice here. Has been Paul's and my co-curator all the way through and has handled every detail. So I really thank you, Alice. I've never done anything like this. It's been a privilege and really a joy. It starts with my visiting Paul in his father's 10th Street apartment in New York, and dark apartment, hot day in New York, and my going through these paintings stacked against the wall, trying to get a glimpse of them without putting holes in them. Mike, you saw this, and trying to figure out, are these worth doing anything with? So we started at absolutely ground zero, knowing nothing about the paintings, the chronology, how they worked, and so on. And Paul and Clyde didn't know a lot more because they weren't there when most of these paintings were painted. So together we had to really figure out Ray Spillenger and his life and his contribution. So we took it in practical terms. It was a great experience taking these. Leslie, where are you? Made extraordinarily good photographs of them, which I worked with for months, and they really served the purpose. I slowly began to get a sense of what Ray had done in his life, tried to make a chronology, and we found a wonderful restorer in New York who cleaned a bunch of them at prices, reasonable prices that we could afford, non-New York prices. And then we found a wonderful framer in Boston who framed them all, I think, really handsomely in the way they deserve. And then Paul made a connection with Alice in Black Mountain, and so now there's an exhibition here. And so now we have here a time capsule, and we realize that for a period in the 1940s, Asheville, but especially nearby Black Mountain, was the center of the American art world. Very briefly, American creativity coalesced here, a group of great geniuses, Buckminster Fuller, John Cage, and Bill de Kooning, Rauschenberg, Ken Noland, and so on, were there as students or teachers. And in the 40s, everything came together in a way that it hasn't, again, in any single location, I think. It all starts with Peggy Guggenheim's discovery of Jackson Pollock in 1943, and then the idea of Americans creating an abstract style of their own, different from European style. Europe was now buried in the rubble of war. American painters, led by Pollock and de Kooning and a few others, developed an American style, and thereby, by chance or not so much chance, was young Ray Spillenger, going to study at Black Mountain for the summer of 1948, when everything happened. All the vortexes were trembling, and he had an extraordinary summer and learned his earlier works during that summer are like this one, where he's taking on, trying to see what de Kooning is doing. De Kooning is devoting his summer of teaching to making one painting, one great painting about this size called Asheville, putting a punctuation mark. And Ray is watching him paint Asheville and trying to make sense of what he's doing, and then slowly, within a year or two, developing his own forceful, interesting, impactful, abstract style. So this is the early Ray, and then by the time you get to over here in the 50s, I'll just move over here. Ray is painting pictures as good as anyone, really, this is fantastic, fantastic museum quality picture. A couple of museums recognized him. The Walker Art Center, which is led by the most brilliant art historian around, and the Hirshhorn, Mr. Hirshhorn walked in, saw his only previous one-man show occurred in 1960 or so, and Hirshhorn bought 3 of these paintings for the Hirshhorn Museum. But then along, within a couple of years, came pop art and a whole revolution of taste. Jasper Johns, Rauschenberg, Lichtenstein, Warhol changed art just as Ray was finding his own steps. This is a totally uncynical generation, a totally uncynical generation. They painted the way they painted because they really believed in modern style. None of these painters was then going to say, oh, I've got to jump on the new bandwagon. They just didn't do that. So in the 60s, he was left behind and then 40 years later, I'm in this apartment with Paul in an apartment full of paintings. And so this is, I started off by saying it's a labor of love. This is very much about 2 sons, Paul and Clyde, wanting to give their father a chance to be known. After his death, but a chance to be known. So this is Ray's chance, and we're so grateful to Black Mountain, which is the only place this show should have appeared. That's where he started. So we're grateful to Black Mountain for making this possible, letting the world can now judge. They can like him, they can not like him, whatever. But this also is a time when abstract expressionism is being appreciated as never before. There are all the young painters. I noticed at the Miami Basel Art Fair a few weeks ago, all the young painters are trying to paint abstract expressionist pictures. It's coming back. They're choosing it as a style, whereas for Ray and his contemporaries, the style chose them. It wasn't a casual choice. It was an inevitability. So it's been really a pleasure and a loving pleasure for me to work on this show with the museum and with the 2 brothers whom I admire greatly. Thank you very much.